I'm Andrew McCarron. I'm the Managing Director of SBC, and this is SBC Leaders. With me today, we've got Dr Jennifer Shatley, who is the Executive Director of the Responsible Online Gaming Association, ROGA. Jennifer, how are you doing?
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
No, good. So, can you give us provide a brief overview of what ROGA do? Because they're quite a new organisation, aren't they?
Yes. So ROGA is a collective engagement among 7 of the largest online sports betting and iGaming operators. They represent about 85% of the U.S. market. And they've come together really of an overarching goal to enhance responsible gaming and to protect the well-being of customers and to provide them with the information, tools, and programs to really help protect their well-being and to keep gaming as the entertainment it was intended to be. And we have 5 main pillars that we're going to be doing this by. One would be research, and that's going to drive a lot of the initiatives that we engage in. Another is the creation and validation of best practices. Online gaming is a very new space. Responsible gaming itself is a fairly new space, but definitely within an online gaming environment. So we're looking at best practices and establishing that within the online environment. Education and awareness initiatives across a variety of different audiences. A data clearinghouse to facilitate better information sharing amongst our operators. And then also an independent certification program to really assess and validate the robust responsible gaming programs that we have in place.
Okay, and how did you come to those? How did you narrow it down to those five pillars?
I think those are the ones that we really identified where we could have an impact, and those are the ones that I think are lacking, that there's not a lot of understanding, again, within the online space of how to do responsible gaming really well. Do you take what's already been done within a bricks and mortar venue and just try to adapt that to online? Will that even work? Is that the best way? We don't know. So I think that's really where we can delve into how do you do this in the best way for that new environment, and maybe it's something completely different. Because I do think there are advantages of online gaming for responsible gaming because you know who your customer is, you see every transaction, every interaction, you're engaging directly with them, so you can integrate responsible gaming tools directly into the experience instead of kind of hoping they do it, because within an online environment you say set a budget, but you don't give them the tools to do that. So we're looking at that, and then education and awareness is always incredibly important. Again, you're looking at a new cohort, a new type of player, making sure they understand how to engage in the product in a responsible way. And then also, the certification is really to show, to build that trust that these operators are operating these robust programs and giving them sort of that stamp of approval. And then the data clearinghouse, again, it's important to understand holistically what a player is doing from a responsible gaming perspective. So if we can facilitate that and help better protect the customer, I think that's a win for our members and for the industry.
So sorry, just to go into the certification thing you were talking about there, is that like you would get like GLI certifying some of the slots and things like that?
It would be similar to that. So it would be an independent certification program, yes.
Okay, excellent. You said social responsibility, the problem gambling side is quite new, but of course it's been long an issue in land-based gambling even before the explosion in online gambling. Of course, that's where some of your background is. I mean, what was it about this project that appealed to you? What are you looking forward to bringing to the aims of the organisation?
I think the collective approach of everyone coming together to have a sort of a more meaningful and impactful voice was very appealing to me. But my background, so I've been doing responsible gaming for 25 years, and I had the privilege of doing a lot of the firsts in the industry around responsible gaming in a land-based venue. So I like to innovate. I like to continue to push everything forward, the field forward, and I found this was an opportunity to do that, especially within a space that's brand new. I'll get to be the first executive director of this organization. So again, trying to establish and really improve and enhance what we're doing, but looking at innovative ways. Technology is something I'm also very interested in, and the online space gives me a lot of opportunity as well to look at technology and how to integrate that more into the responsible gaming programs.
And is this, the creation of this, has this also been a sort of a response to kind of how society has reacted to the opening up of the market and the 7 members that you mentioned realising that there should be an area that they're taking more seriously, really?
I think, all of our members have their own responsible gaming programs, so they are doing things in the space, but I do think they understood that collectively we can do more and we can understand it better and be more effective. And so they embraced that and came together to create ROGA.
So with regards to those members, you've got a budget to start off with. It's about $20 million, is that right? But you've also got quite a few pillars to be looking at. How are you allocating? How do you choose where that money goes? I mean, so how much are you allocating to research, and how confident are you that that's the right amount, or is this going to be something that gets tweaked as you get more experience?
Well, we're about a month and a half old, so we're still figuring out.
Decided already.
Right. We're still figuring out the exact allocations. I'm fortunate I do have a robust budget, so I have money to play with around these initiatives, but we're looking to be very collaborative. So in terms of research, we want to engage with academics, with experts, with researchers to help us fill out that research agenda, and then we'll determine how much revenue should be going towards research. But again, research is going to drive a lot of what we do. It'll drive the best practices. It'll drive the creation of the certification program. It'll drive the creation of the education and awareness program. So it will be a robust budget around that. But yes, that we'll be allocating funds across all 5 pillars because we're going to move all initiatives all at once.
So with regards to, so somebody comes up with a research project asking for funding, is it you making that decision, or is there would there be a group of people like a board advising on what gets funded and what doesn't get funded? We are
creating an advisory board. We're in the process of that right now, of looking at who we think should compose that. So it will be collaborative around assessing what should be funded, and we'll have overarching categories of ideas that will help us, because our intent with the research is really how can we inform what we're doing, and how can we action and operationalize research, because I have a research background as well. And a lot of times, as researchers, we kind of do a research project, put it on the shelf, and move on to the next research project. What we want to do is really, take that research and translate what does that mean? How does that look in a gaming environment? How can that help us create these best practices? How can that help us with responsible gaming initiatives and really operationalize it? And so that's where my background as well in operations comes into handy.
No, that's interesting, because certainly in the UK there's been a lot of research on certain in certain areas around the space that have not really had a practical application and not been able to inform things. It just seems to have been research for doing research's sake, and it's kind of you're at a dead end straight away. So it's almost like it's been a waste of an opportunity for funding when it could have been something that you can actually utilize in the day-to-day operation and stuff. So,
well, and I do think too that a lot of the research is focused around problem gambling, and so responsible gaming programs are prevention programs, and so the intent of responsible gaming programs is to prevent problems from developing, and the target audience is the entire player base. But what we've seen is, because they're so associated with problem gambling and problem gambling programs, that customers tend to ignore them because they think that's a problem gambling program, that's not for me, so they don't engage in them. And I think part of that is, we're focusing on problem gambling and then trying to back into how do you create prevention programs. So that's where a lot of the research is focused. What I would like to see is responsible gaming focused research. So why aren't we talking to guests that don't develop problems, those that play in a way that's fun and entertaining and within their means, and then design responsible gaming and prevention programs around them, because maybe they have protective factors, maybe there's messages that are resonating with them, but because we're not doing research with that group, we're not getting that information. So that's really where I'd like to change the focus to really inform these programs from a prevention perspective.
That makes total sense. One of the other 5 pillars that you mentioned earlier that really stood out to me as offering something different compared to, should we say, what other organisations of this type have done in the past, is the independent data clearinghouse. And just wondering, are you at the stage where you can tell us a bit more how that will operate, or is that at this early stage, is it still kind of an aspiration?
It's still in development stage, but we're moving rather quickly. I've had the benefit in my career to have created technology before. So we're fleshing out a lot of details, but we see it as an iterative process. We know we can get short-term steps, and then we know what sort of our long-term vision is. So initially, the overall idea is we want to be able to share information amongst operators in order to better protect customers. So what that looks like and how we're defining that as we move forward will change. But initially, think of universal self-exclusion across all of the operators across all jurisdictions. There's a lot of hurdles to jump through to get there, not only from a technology perspective, but from a confidentiality perspective, from data protection, all of the antitrust. Like, there's a lot of issues, but I think we can work through that and really have that come out first with the ultimate goal of, identification of risk and sharing that type of information across operators. So again, we can better engage with guests to try to either motivate behavioral change as a preventive mechanism, or if an action needs to be taken because of the risk, then all operators are aware of this and they're all talking to each other. So that's the ultimate goal.
I mean, is there also a bit of a mindset thing around that? Because certainly bookies in the past and gambling operators in the past have been very wary of sharing information on their customers, very protective of, in case they're a good customer, not necessarily wanting to pass them on. So I'm assuming that there's a bit of a educational process from the operator side of things as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Fortunately, responsible gaming is an area where they're not as competitive against each other. This is where they all have the same goal and outcome. They want to protect guests. They want, guest well-being. They want the sustainability of the guests and the industry itself. And they know that to do that, it's better to share information and to come together to do that. So there will be hurdles to work through still, and education around that. But I think from what we're trying to do, they all understand that and embrace that. So we have a better path to get there than if it was a marketing initiative.
I mean, certainly in the UK, they're trying to do a bit more like data sharing things, but the customer base is so suspicious that they think that data is going to be used to the detriment of them being able to place a bet, sort of thing. So again, there's educational both ways, and then obviously to the regulator as well as what you're doing. So it's I think that will be a big project for you guys. But again, one that's really interesting that I think will, as a good opportunity to really make a it's a good one. Obviously, you've got some international operators in your membership. What cues and what inspiration have you taken from other markets where they've had similar initiatives? Some have been successful, some less so. Just wondered if you've managed to have a look at what's worked, and you've been able to cherry pick some of the better ideas.
Yeah, and I think we benefit from looking at what's been tried in other markets and learning from, what were the successes, what were the failures, and trying to work around that. The U.S. is a unique market, but I do think we can learn from international jurisdictions, from a policy perspective, from an education perspective. But we are, the U.S. has been doing responsible gaming for a long time. I mean, I've been in the role 25 years, and it's an area that the industry has embraced. Some markets that hasn't always been the case. So there's been actions taken at a regulatory level that had to have been taken because the industry wasn't willing to do it. So I think we're in a better place to start, but definitely we can learn from even the technology that's been tried or the partnerships that have been tried of how to do this and learn.
With it being sort of state-run, you've got a lot of regulators to communicate with. How receptive have they been to this initiative?
Very receptive. They're very excited about it. I think when we announced, we got a lot of people excited, reaching out, and thought this was a good thing to do. So there's been a lot of, there's been some questions around it as well, of the intent. But I think once we start moving forward with initiatives that people understand.
Are suspicious all the time, aren't
they really are.
There's too many people thinking there's something nefarious going on when you're actually trying to tackle something tricky. But no, I suppose from a regulator perspective, it makes their life easier having one person to speak to rather than several different companies to try and to ruin it all together. I mean, with regards to that, you say you've got 85% of the market covered. Obviously, you want to try and raise the standards across the industry. So, how are you going to sort of encourage the other 15%, shall we say, to follow your lead?
Yeah, and I think that's really about collaboration as well across other organizations that do responsible gaming. And historically, I've worked with a lot of organizations, and I really believe in collaboration. And as we did when I was at Caesars, we sort of set a standard that was higher than anything that was being done in the industry, higher than anything that was being regulated into the industry. And over time, that's now commonplace. So a lot of what's done today as responsible gaming initiatives is things that we did as first. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen here with ROGA, is we will look at best practices and create those, not only to raise the standards for our operators, but across the industry. And over time, I think that will happen.
I mean, with regards to that, has there been conversations about even increasing the membership? Or is it more of a case of seeing how well you do, how effective you can be in that short period of time, and then you've got a more compelling argument for people to join in, I guess?
There's been a lot of interest of joining and how people can become associated with the organization. I do think we're going to focus right now on getting some of these initiatives moved forward. We have quite a few that we're very optimistic to move forward quickly, but we are interested in increasing the membership, and we've had a lot of interest already. So I feel in short time we'll also start adding to the membership.
Well, it's a very important area that you're working in, Jen, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.